What if I told you that the entire Star Wars saga could have been completely different with just one change? Not a different chosen one, not a different emperor, but simply if the Jedi Order had listened to one maverick master who saw the Force differently than everyone else. Qui-Gon Jinn wasn't just another Jedi Master. He was a rebel within the Order itself, and his philosophy was so radical that it could have prevented the Clone Wars, saved Anakin Skywalker, and completely reshaped galactic history. Today, we're diving into the most fascinating what-if scenario in Star Wars lore. To understand how different things could have been, we need to understand what made Qui-Gon so unique. While the Jedi Council focused on the unifying Force, the cosmic energy that binds all things across time and space, Qui-Gon believed in following the living Force. The living Force exists in the present moment. It's about trusting your instincts, acting on compassion, and making decisions based on what feels right now, not what ancient codes or future visions dictate. This wasn't just a different fighting style or meditation technique. This was a completely different way of being a Jedi. Think about every major decision Qui-Gon made. He freed Anakin, not because of prophecy, but because he sensed the boy's suffering. He trusted Jar Jar Binks when logic said not to. He formed genuine relationships instead of maintaining detachment. The Jedi Council saw him as reckless, but what if they were wrong? In our alternate timeline, let's imagine that when Qui-Gon died on Naboo, instead of dismissing his teachings, the Jedi Council realized something crucial. Their rigid approach was failing. Master Yoda, devastated by losing Qui-Gon, begins questioning whether their adherence to ancient traditions is actually serving the galaxy. Mace Windu, despite his skepticism, starts incorporating living Force meditation into Jedi training. The entire Jedi Order begins shifting. They start working more closely with local communities instead of staying isolated in their temple. They focus on preventing conflicts through understanding rather than ending them through combat. Young Jedi are taught to trust their emotions as guidance rather than suppress them as dangerous weaknesses. But this fundamental change in Jedi philosophy creates ripple effects that no one could have predicted. The galaxy is about to discover that sometimes preventing one catastrophe can create something far more dangerous. Here's where everything changes dramatically. Following Qui-Gon's philosophy, the Jedi don't wait for the Separatist crisis to explode. They act on the living Force's guidance and investigate the Trade Federation's blockade of Naboo more thoroughly. Master Yoda, trusting his instincts rather than dismissing them, sends teams to trace the conspiracy. They discover financial irregularities, secret communications, and evidence of manipulation spanning multiple systems. The Jedi, now acting on present-moment intuition, rather than waiting for crises to develop, uncover Darth Sidious manipulating both sides years before the Clone Wars would have started. The entire Separatist movement is exposed as a Sith plot before it can gain momentum. Trade Federation leaders confess under Jedi mind techniques about receiving orders from a mysterious benefactor. Banking clan records reveal funding for a secret army that no one in the Senate authorized. But here's the massive change. Count Dooku never falls to the dark side. When Jedi following Qui-Gon's approach reach out to him with compassion instead of judgment, they address his legitimate concerns about Republic corruption. Instead of becoming a Sith apprentice, Dooku becomes the leader of genuine Republic reform, working within the system to fix the problems that would have driven him to rebellion. Without a Separatist army to justify clone production, the Kaminoan clone army is discovered immediately. Jedi investigators following paper trails and intuitive hunches find Kamino and realize someone ordered a massive military force without Senate approval. The timing is too convenient, the secrecy too complete, and the Jedi's new philosophy of trusting present-moment awareness leads them to ask the right questions. This investigation leads them directly to Chancellor Palpatine, not after years of war, but shortly after Qui-Gon's death. The Jedi discover that he placed the Clone Order using a dead Jedi's identity, manipulated the Trade Federation through intermediaries, and has been playing both sides of a conflict he artificially created. the entire Clone Wars never happen because the conspiracy is unraveled before it can begin. Palpatine's decades of planning crumble when faced with Jedi who act on intuition rather than waiting for bureaucratic approval. But removing Palpatine this early creates an entirely different problem that no one saw coming. With Palpatine exposed and arrested, the Republic faces something the Jedi never anticipated: complete governmental collapse. Palpatine wasn't just a Sith Lord plotting galactic domination, he was also the only thing holding the corrupt Republic together through his political genius and manipulation. Without his behind-the-scenes management, the Senate descends into chaos. Senators who had been secretly taking bribes are exposed. Trade agreements that depended on under-the-table deals fall apart. Military commanders discover their orders came from shell companies that no longer exist. The entire governmental structure that Palpatine had been secretly maintaining through corruption and manipulation simply stops functioning. Legitimate grievances that the Separatists would have exploited instead tear the Republic apart naturally. Entire sectors declare independence not because of Sith manipulation, but because they genuinely can't tolerate Republic corruption anymore. The Outer Rim territories, which had been neglected for decades, refused to send taxes to Coruscant. Core worlds that had been receiving preferential treatment find themselves isolated when their political benefactor is gone. The Jedi Order, following Qui-Gon's non-interference philosophy, refuses to impose peace through force. They believe systems should be free to choose their own governments, even if those choices lead to conflict. This creates a massive problem. The galaxy fragments into thousands of independent systems, many of which immediately go to war with each other over resources, trade routes, and old grievances. Trade routes collapse without Republic protection. Hyperspace lanes that had been maintained by Republic funds become dangerous as pirates and raiders take control. Slavery returns to systems that had been freed under Republic law, but lack the military power to enforce that freedom. Crime syndicates fill the power vacuum left by legitimate government, establishing their own territories and rules. The Hutts expand their territory massively, conquering systems that can no longer call on Republic protection. The corporate sector becomes a brutal oligarchy where mega-corporations rule planets like personal kingdoms. Warlords rise on former Republic worlds, using abandoned military equipment to establish their own empires. All because the Jedi, following Qui-Gon's philosophy, believed in letting the galaxy choose its own path rather than enforcing peace through strength. This is when Anakin Skywalker, trained in emotional balance but still passionate about justice, becomes increasingly frustrated watching systems destroy each other while the Jedi meditate and offer guidance that no one follows. He's seen slavery return to Tatooine, watched Naboo's peaceful neighbors descend into civil war, and observed crime lords establishing brutal dictatorships across the galaxy. The Jedi Council's response is to trust in the Force and believe that balance will eventually return, but Anakin sees suffering that could be prevented through action. This frustration leads Anakin to make a choice that changes everything, and it's not the choice anyone expected. Anakin doesn't fall to the dark side. He breaks away from the Jedi entirely, but stays firmly rooted in the light. Watching systems burn while the Jedi Council debates and meditates, Anakin makes a choice that splits the Order forever. He approaches the Council with a proposal. The Jedi should actively intervene to stop suffering wherever they find it. When they refuse, citing Qui-Gon's philosophy of trusting the living Force and letting events unfold naturally. He resigns from the Jedi Order, but doesn't abandon the Force or turn to darkness. Instead, he takes his wife Padme, several younger Jedi who agree with his philosophy, and forms something the galaxy has never seen: the Gray Jedi Order. They believe in using the Force for active protection, not passive guidance. While traditional Jedi follow Qui-Gon's philosophy of trusting the living Force and letting events unfold naturally, Anakin's Gray Jedi actively intervene to stop suffering wherever they find it. The Gray Jedi become the galaxy's protectors, using their Force abilities to impose peace through strength rather than wisdom. They liberate slave worlds, protect trade routes from pirates, and establish safe zones where refugees can flee from the chaos consuming the galaxy. They don't seek to rule, but they're willing to fight to protect the innocent in ways traditional Jedi will not. This creates a massive schism that splits the Force-using community forever. Master Yoda and the Council believe Anakin is repeating ancient mistakes that led to the Jedi-Sith Wars. They argue that using the Force to impose one's will, even for good reasons, inevitably leads to the dark side. Anakin believes the traditional Jedi have become so focused on non-attachment and trust in the Force that they've forgotten compassion requires action, not just meditation. The galaxy now has two competing Force orders operating simultaneously. Traditional Jedi who follow Qui-Gon's living philosophy of presence, acceptance, and trust in the Force's will. And Gray Jedi who follow Anakin's interpretation that love demands protection through action, even if that action requires imposing your will on others. Traditional Jedi arrive on conflict-torn worlds to mediate, counsel, and help opposing sides find peaceful solutions. Gray Jedi arrive to establish peace through Force, eliminate threats, and create stable conditions where traditional Jedi methods might eventually work. Sometimes they cooperate, but more often they find themselves in conflict over methodology. But the real shock comes when Luke and Leia are born. Padme survives because Anakin never touched the dark side, remaining committed to protection rather than domination. But the twins are born into a galaxy where their father has created a fundamental schism in how the Force is understood and used. Each twin develops different Force abilities based on their training. Luke gravitates toward his father's active protection philosophy, learning to use the Force as a tool for imposing order and defending the weak. Leia is drawn to the traditional Jedi path of wisdom, patience, and trust in the Force's natural balance. The Skywalker family becomes a living representation of the galaxy's divided Force traditions. This division fundamentally changes how the Force works in the galaxy. Instead of one unified understanding passed down through generations, there are now competing philosophies about the Force's purpose and proper use, and this creates an opportunity for something ancient and terrible to return. Here's the consequence no one anticipated. The schism between traditional and Gray Jedi creates something that hasn't existed for thousands of years, a fundamental imbalance in the Force itself. The Force has always sought balance between light and dark, but that balance depended on unified understanding among its users. With the Jedi Order split and Luke and Leia representing opposing Force philosophies within the same bloodline, the dark side gains strength it hasn't had since the ancient Sith Empire ruled the galaxy. Dormant Sith artifacts that have slept for millennia begin awakening on forgotten worlds. Ancient holocrons start broadcasting their messages again. Dark side cults that have hidden in the galaxy's shadows suddenly find their powers magnified beyond anything they've experienced. Force-sensitive individuals who might have become Jedi instead find themselves drawn to darker teachings that suddenly seem more appealing and accessible. Most terrifying of all, the ancient Sith spirits trapped in places like Korriban, Ziost, and Dromund Kaas begin breaking free from their prisons. These aren't the political Sith like Palpatine who sought to rule through manipulation and control. These are the primordial Sith Lords who once conquered entire sectors of space and commanded armies of dark Jedi in wars that lasted centuries. Ancient Sith weapons and ships that have been lost in hyperspace for thousands of years suddenly reappear, as if the Force imbalance has torn holes in space and time itself. But here's the truly chilling part. These ancient Sith don't want to rule the galaxy like Palpatine did. They want to devour it. They feed on the Force itself, consuming the life energy of entire worlds to sustain their undead existence. A galaxy with divided Jedi orders, competing Force philosophies, and constant conflict provides the perfect feeding ground for entities that grow stronger through discord and division. The fragmented Republic systems, already weakened by constant warfare and political chaos begin falling to something far worse than mere conquest. Entire star systems go silent as ancient Sith Lords drain them of all Force energy, leaving behind lifeless husks floating in space. Ships that investigate these dead zones simply vanish, their crews consumed to feed the growing hunger of awakened Sith spirits. Anakin's Gray Jedi and the traditional Jedi Council realize they must reunite or watch the galaxy be consumed by something far darker than anything they've ever faced. But Luke and Leia, raised in different Force traditions, might be the key to either salvation or total destruction. Their opposing philosophies could either provide the balance needed to reseal the ancient Sith, or their division could complete the imbalance that allows these primordial entities to fully manifest in the physical world. The question becomes, can a divided Force save the galaxy from an enemy that feeds on division itself, or has Qui-Gon's philosophy, filtered through Anakin's interpretation and the galaxy's political chaos, doomed everyone by creating the very imbalance the ancient Sith need to return and consume everything? So here's the ultimate irony. By following Qui-Gon's philosophy of trusting the living Force and accepting change, the Jedi prevented the Clone Wars and the Empire's rise. They stopped Palpatine's political manipulation and saved Anakin from falling to the dark side. But in doing so, they created something potentially far more catastrophic than anything the galaxy had ever faced. The ancient Sith Lords, who once ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, are returning, powered by the very Force imbalance that Anakin's rebellion created. And unlike Palpatine, who wanted to rule the galaxy through fear and control, these ancient enemies want to consume everything, every planet, every star, every living being, until nothing remains but empty space and their own eternal hunger. Luke, trained as a Gray Jedi warrior who believes in imposing peace through action, and Leia, following traditional Jedi wisdom of patience and trust in the Force's will, represent the galaxy's last hope. But they've been raised with opposing philosophies about how the Force should be used, and their division might be exactly what the ancient Sith need to complete their return. Can siblings trained to see the Force differently unite to face an enemy that feeds on division itself? Or will the very philosophical split that saved the galaxy from the Empire now destroy it completely, feeding the ancient hunger that has been waiting in the darkness for its chance to devour everything? If you've enjoyed this journey through an alternate Star Wars timeline, there are more untold stories waiting to be discovered. Join our growing community of Star Wars enthusiasts who believe in exploring these what-if moments that could have changed the galaxy far, far away. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and activate notifications to catch our next alternative Star Wars story. Each tale offers a new perspective on the characters we love and the choices that define them. Remember to share your thoughts in the comments below. What other pivotal moments in the Star Wars saga would you like to see explored differently? Your ideas might inspire our next adventure. May the Force be with you, always.